31-year-old Claretha Gibbs lived in Fort Myers, Florida in 1984. She originally lived in Tampa, but moved to Fort Myers in 1979. Claretha fell on hard times and started working as a prostitute. At her work, she went by the name Coco. On June 26, 1984, Fort Myers police responded to a call of shots being fired in the area of Palm Beach Avenue and Lincoln Boulevard. They found Claretha's body at 2831 Lincoln Boulevard. She had been fatally shot. At the crime scene, they found a rag with the suspect's DNA, but at the time, DNA testing was not common or very advanced. Witnesses came forward and told police that they last saw Claretha entering a two-tone vehicle, possibly a pickup, just before hearing a gunshot. The driver was described as a white male in his 30s, with brown or dark blonde hair, a thin build, approximately 5 foot 10 inches tall with a pale complexion. Despite the detailed description of the suspect, investigators were not able to identify him. The case was revisited in a special report in September 1994 edition of The News Press about the 16 unsolved cases of prostitutes whose lives were taken in the Fort Myers area in the preceding 20 years. In January 2017, Fort Myers Police Department's Cold Case Unit investigators submitted the DNA evidence they had of the suspect from the rag to DNA Labs International for more testing. A full DNA profile of the suspect was obtained and entered into CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database, but it did not provide a hit to any known samples. In March of 2019, investigators contacted Parabon Nanolabs, asking for help in solving the case. Parabon then employed one of their services called Parabon Snapshot for development of a profile using genealogy research. Finally, on June 22, 2020, Parabon Nanolabs completed their report on the case. It indicated that the DNA profile was linked through genealogy databases to an individual identified as 65-year-old James Glenn Drennan. He lived in Okeechobee, Florida. Investigators then began to research James and found that he lived in Lee County, Florida at the time of the crime. Fort Myers is in Lee County. Investigators had to make sure that he is the one that took Claretha's life. So on July 27, 2020, investigators combed James's discarded trash and obtained a sample of his DNA. The sample was then sent to DNA Labs International. It was a match for the DNA collected from the scene on the night Claretha's life was taken. On January 13, 2021, investigators contacted James in Okeechobee, Florida. James then provided a statement where he admitted that he fatally shot Claretha. James said that he was working as an area mechanic and picked up Claretha to engage in her services. James claimed that she pulled a gun on him to rob him. They fought over the weapon and Claretha was shot during the altercation. According to James, he then fled the scene and threw the gun out the window of his truck. 5 days after confessing, on January 18, 2021, James passed away in his home. There's been no more information made public as to how he passed. His confession was enough for Fort Myers police to close the case. We'll never know what truly happened though on that fateful day. One of Claretha's surviving relatives, a sister named Cynthia Hampton, who lives in Cape Coral, Florida, was surprised when the police contacted her about the investigation. She said that it feels good to know now who took Claretha's life. The Fort Myers Police Department have issued a statement saying, "The case is an excellent example of good old-fashioned police work, combined with the advancements that technology can provide law enforcement." The Fort Myers Police Department and Chief Derek Diggs are committed to using any resource or technology available to solve our unsolved cases and bring justice to their families. "78-year-old Mildred Matheny lived in Lake Worth, Florida in 1985. She suffered from dementia. Mildred was a retired nurse. On the evening of April 27th, a passerby discovered Mildred with life-threatening injuries. She was naked and bloody from blows to her head and face. Her discarded clothes were strewn around and her dentures were found in the dirt. She was then taken to the hospital, but sadly succumbed to her injuries a few days later. Investigators tried to create a timeline. They found that Mildred was last seen at her home, where she lived with her younger sister Gladys Nolan, in the 1300 block of Crestwood Boulevard in Lake Worth Beach. Mildred then seemingly wandered off, not for the first time. At 4:30 p.m., she was reported missing. Then at 10 p.m., she was found by the passerby lying on the ground in Old Town Indian Road in Jupiter, more than 30 miles from her home. Witnesses reported seeing Mildred get into a brown Oldsmobile sedan at the intersection of Dixie Highway and Lucerne Avenue. The witnesses told investigators that the man behind the wheel said he was Mildred's neighbor and was going to help her get home. What exactly happened between then and when she was found, they did not know. An autopsy revealed that she had been indecently assaulted. Frustratingly, without suspects or strong leads, the case went cold for many years. That was until recently. Investigators took the DNA of the suspect they collected from Mildred's body in 1985 and made use of genetic genealogy to identify him. In March of 2021, they identified him as 61-year-old Richard Curtis Lang. He lives in Boynton Beach, Florida, which is very close to where Mildred lived. He is currently being held at Palm Beach County Jail without bond. He denies any involvement in the crime and hired a defense attorney. The attorney had this to say in a statement: Mr. Lang vehemently denies the allegations brought today by the Palm Beach County State's Attorney Office, and we look forward to aggressively challenging the forensic evidence attributed to Mr. Lang. Nothing in Mr. Lang's past indicates a propensity for such abhorrent behavior, and given his age and health, we will argue that he should be released to home detention as we prepare for trial. It is unclear how Mildred's path may have crossed with Richard, who was 25 years old at the time the crime occurred. Richard is a convicted felon. His DNA was uploaded to CODIS after his arrest on a weapons possession charge in 2012 in Palm Beach County. Despite him denying any involvement, investigators are sure that he is responsible. He is a convicted felon, lived in the area, and it's really hard explaining away the fact that his DNA was found inside her body. Mildred's son had this to say following the arrest: "It's been a long time, and I'm thankful to the cold case people for finding that dastardly SOB." He said his mom worked with psychiatric patients in a Little Rock hospital in Arkansas. She enjoyed sewing, cooking, and the company of family.